as we lead into Thanksgiving in the wrestling world, we think about Survivor Series. It was, and Chad Cooper joins me on This Week in Wrestling. Coop, times have changed a little bit because when we were younger and we were growing up, Thanksgiving and Christmas were big days for wrestling events because wrestling was kind of everything was different. It wasn't as much of a TV event as it was a live event. So they would run big shows around Thanksgiving and around Christmas because you always knew a lot of family would be in town. There'd be a lot of people around. They'd be looking for something to do. So back in the territory days, a lot of times they would build to big events around Thanksgiving and around Christmas. And then WWE picked up on that with Survivor Series, I think 1987. And it was always either the Wednesday right before Thanksgiving or right around Thanksgiving. So always feel like Survivor Series when it's this time of the year.
Oh, I remember that Thanksgiving night. I had to find a kid I went to school with that had one of those boxes.
The black box, baby. That was me.
Yeah, that we could actually get the pay-per-view, right? And I remember the first one, 87, 4 matches. You had 3 5-on-5 matches, and I think you had a 10-on-10 tag match. I remember Andre the Giant being the lone survivor, eliminating Bam Bam Bigelow, and just I think even after that, it was like 4 or 5 years until we finally got like a singles
match. It was all tag matches to start
because it was Taker defeating Hulk Hogan for the world title. I think at Survivor Series 5 or 6.
That was 1990, I believe. That was 91 leading because what it was leading into the 92 Rumble when we had the title up for grabs. Because
perfect.
What they had was at the Survivor Series, it was Hogan versus Taker, and Ric Flair came down to the ringside and he slid the chair in the ring.
That's it.
And Taker tombstoned Hogan on the chair.
And
he won the title. And it was crazy because it was like in the middle of the show.
Yes,
it wasn't like the main.
That was like, no, there were 5 matches. That was match 3.
Yeah,
I remember it like it was yesterday.
It was so crazy. And it was like, I remember the vibe, like what happened. Oh my God. Like they kept talking about it. And then they had the promo from Hogan at the end, talking about how, Jack Tunney, you screwed me, man. I can't believe this. And then they had.
This is not a good Thanksgiving, brother.
So they created the event this Tuesday in Texas. Coming off of that.
Oh, yeah.
To have the rematch.
Yeah.
For the world title rematch. They also had Macho Man Randy Savage versus Jake the Snake. Because Macho Man was supposed to be in a Survivor Series match against Jake the Snake, but then they had all the stuff with the snake and the poison, and Jake had him tied up in the ropes, which was one of the great angles ever. And they're fighting Snake. Is that snake devenomized? And Vince is screaming. That was awesome. That was so good.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was one of the big. It still is, but back in the day, that was one of the big 4. This was big. There are 4 pillars for WWE big events, and Survivor Series was one of them, man.
And it changed a little bit, but now with the War Games addition to it, it has a different excitement feel.
It's a completely different vibe.
Yeah,
now. I think 2022 they added the War Games stipulation.
Yep.
I think this is
it's just
third year now. Yeah,
third year where they've been doing this, and it's awesome. So as we're talking about WWE, we have Survivor Series coming up this weekend. I think 6 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday for the start time for War Games. So I will say the build to this, in particular, the men's War Games match, we can start with that, Bloodline versus the Bloodline. There have been times where I was like, I'm not sure, like the timing of it. It's so hard to book an angle like this where they've got all these moving pieces, all these different guys. And, there would be a week or two where I would start to get a little critical. And then the next week it's like, you know what? I'm really going to not be that critical about this one angle until we are recapping things, because they just seem like they know exactly what they're doing. They seem like they got their finger on the pulse with this. I'm sitting here thinking about Sammy and Jay and Jimmy and Seth, and then they bring CM Punk into the mix and just add
crazy
all of these variables. I mean, I have no idea coming out of this, what could happen? We talk about Punk Roman. Does Seth Rollins get pissed off? Does he somehow get in the mix here? Do we get something with Sammy? Looked like he didn't like Punk around. There was something weird with that. I have no clue what's going on, but man, I am so excited because coming out of this Bloodline story, is Paul Heyman the good guy? Do Paul Heyman and Punk turn on Roman, and do we get a Paul Heyman and Punk heel run for a while? Does Heyman go back with the old Bloodline and Solo? Was he just setting all this up? Is he somewhat still mad at Roman? Man, I have no idea. It could be any one of a million things.
And there were a lot of similarities when Paul Heyman came out there. I think he had the same. I think someone pointed this out. He had the same color tie that
As Solo, right?
had on, right? But going back to last week, you and I were like, man, it just kind of feels forced. If
Or kind of
Seth
rushed.
Rollins, yes, rushed. And if they get Paul, what's going to happen if Paul comes back this week? And then he did. I'm just straight up honest. I had no idea this was going to be a point where we get CM Punk back. Now, we just mentioned him that Gunther made a reference to him. Maybe that was a reference. Maybe that was an Easter egg that Punk was going to be on WWE television soon. I don't know. And then the way SmackDown kind of ended, they're kind of looking around and CM Punk's on the other end. And as you said, there's so many different ways to go. Unfortunately, as we tape early this week for this show, Gino, the odds won't come out until probably later tonight or Wednesday.
Because you and I are recording on Tuesday, early Tuesday.
But, again, does this change the dynamic for you of which team needs to win? And I think now we may get a heel turn for Paul Heyman, and I don't know if it involves CM Punk or not, but I think we may get a Heyman turn here because there's no way the faces can win this. And
no, they can't.
If tomorrow or Thursday, I'm seeing a minus 2,000 OG Bloodline Team Roman Reigns. I don't care. I would bet the other side. There's no way the faces can win this match.
They can't,
regardless of CM Punk's in the corner now.
There's so much else on theirs. There's so much going on their side that could be the reason why they lose.
Sure.
For them to get a quick, easy out. And it's, dude, I got so, like, initially when we were talking about this, and initially this was happening, I was like, and then I quickly backed up and was like, I'm really excited for this because one, we don't know how long CM Punk has as a wrestler anymore. Like, sure. And like that's just being honest. He's older. Like you can't act like CM Punk is Austin Theory, where you've got 20 years left with a guy like that. So you know what? I was a little worried. Like, there's all this Bloodline stuff going on. Do you need to insert CM Punk into the middle of it? Dude, I trust what they're doing. I don't think they had a big plan and then all of a sudden said, "Oh, let's just add it."
Yeah, let's go this way. No, not anymore. Maybe back in the day when Vince was like putting the Sharpie through markups right before the.
But not anymore. I just get the feeling that this was like Paul Heyman's baby, the storyline. Right?
I feel that too.
And it's going to go up and down and up and down. And I completely agree with you. The heels have to win. And then it sets up all these different things coming out with Roman, does Roman
Sammy,
Sammy, and does Roman then, like what I've been asking for all along, I don't want Roman to get down on his knees and start crying like a little baby. I don't want that. But I do think you don't lose anything for Roman going to his guys and telling them, I'm sorry, I went too far. The bloodline was all of us. It wasn't about me. Like, I was your tribal chief and I wasn't the right leader. Like, that's fine. That's all. That's all that's needed. And I think you're still going to get that moment after they hit their rock bottom. No pun intended. Who knows? Maybe they will hit rock bottom. But, oh man, like, I'm really excited. And just in a small way, how cool was the babyface Paul Heyman pop? Like, Paul Heyman's never been a babyface, like, ever, right? I mean, we're talking late 80s, early 90s. WCW, Paul E. Dangerously, ECW. I mean, he was kind of like a cult babyface to the ECW crowd because there was this like us against the world. We're not the WWE. But he's never in a storyline been like the good guy. Like the guy doing things on the up and up. So
yeah, it's been like what, half a century.
I know.
Seriously, 40, 50 years. This guy has been.
He's always the Weasley guy. You know what I mean? Like he's the guy behind the scenes, cutting corners. If I would, sir, can I just please tell you about this? My Paul Heyman is actually like a Bruce Pritchard doing Paul Heyman because I actually love.
Great,
I love Bruce Pritchard. If I can, sir, can I just please? Like he does the like Paul Heyman talking to Vince, and it would be so funny of that. But we've got Roman, Jimmy, Jay, Sammy, and CM Punk with Paul Heyman versus the New Bloodline, Solo, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, Tongaloa, and Bronson Reed. How does Punk play into this? Because yeah, like if you're not sure if Punk's going to be around for 3 years, and then maybe you had like a CM Punk calendar, right? Of like, hey, here's the next couple years of his contract. This is what we'd love to do and get the most out of him. But maybe, yeah, he had another little injury, or maybe there's that. And maybe you start saying, let's kind of speed some of this up because let's get him involved with the bloodline stuff. Let's get him involved with Roman. Let's get him involved with Seth and some of these big matches that we had, because if we save them down the line, they may not be there.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Could we get does this lead to maybe the Punk Rollins some way for Mania? Like we thought we were going to maybe get last year. That could be something cool.
It's just so many different ways you could go. I don't think there's a bad spot for any of this, really.
And you know what?
The
only one that would have been bad, Chad, I think would have been if they would have rushed something with Seth and Roman. That would have been bad.
Yeah, yes, because that was the one we talked about.
That story is like the biggest story that they've been telling for a decade. That needs to play out over a long period of time. And that can be a Mania match or something, but that could be a show that you completely sell a SummerSlam with. Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns as a main event there. The history between the Shield. Like that, I just want that to play out longer and not be rushed. So I was glad they didn't have Seth just come in like, hey guys, we're all going to put our differences aside and be the babyface team. That couldn't happen. This is too good. There's too many layers to this. It is.
Yeah, because we just had the previous Monday, Seth Rollins saying, hey man, I hate the bloodline, but there's no way I'm standing side by side with Roman. And if you force that, it's like, well, Seth, you're a liar.
I know. And you make your baby faces seem cringy, or they lose their credibility. And you don't want to do that. You don't need to do that. Man, this is going to be good. It's good. And I will say, the women's match we talked about last week, I still don't like the idea of we have to have a women's War Games match because there's a men's War Games match. I don't think you need that. I think Royal Rumble is fine. I think Elimination Chamber is fine. This is a little different because this feels more storyline. Like it has to be part of the story to have the War Games match. But I will say, after all of that, what they've done since, I think they've done a really nice job with the two teams so far. I thought the angle they did on Monday was fantastic. It was perfect. It was exactly what you would like. I think in real life, Jade is hurt. I think that's a serious injury. It's not just part of the story. So Jade got hurt. They needed to fill a spot on the women's side. So you have Bianca, Naomi, Io, and Rhea. There's already this really kind of tough dynamic between Rhea and Bianca because they both think they're the leader of the team. You know, Bianca's kind of been the leader, or like the top woman on the SmackDown side for a while. Even when she's not the champ, she's the tag team champ. She's involved in a lot of the feuds. And
so wait a minute, you're telling me, Gino B, that you went from, I don't know why we're having this damn women's Survivor Series match because the heels have just been thrown together, and you've done a complete 180 on this.
Let me say, I still don't know if I would have done this myself, right?
Okay.
But so then what I try to do when we're talking about these shows as an analyst, I don't think enough people do this, right? I said last week, I wouldn't have done that. So I probably wouldn't have done it to begin with. But now, can they find a way to make the best out of it? If they're going to do that, now make sure you find a way to make me kind of forget that I felt last week that way. And this was perfect because now all of a sudden I'm interested in Bianca and Rhea and those two. Like,
yeah, because I think if Jade is going to be out a while, which I don't know, but she could be, that in itself will be good because that's how we could get Rhea hillish again.
Exactly.
If you know what I mean.
She's the person that gets, like, there's not many people that will elicit the cheers opposite of Rhea. Kind of what you were going for, right? Only a few, and Bianca's one of them.
Yes.
And could it be the other way? Bianca was even like, you could see Bianca for the first time going heel. And Rhea could actually be, if they had Bianca do some heelish stuff, Rhea would absolutely get cheered. 100%.
Yeah, perfectly fine with that.
So that's, again, like, they've got these two incredible women who haven't really crossed paths a whole lot. And they just
Are we okay with Bayley, Gino?
That's, dude,
this spot.
I thought it was perfect because Bianca and Bayley have all this history. Bianca did not want to trust Bayley. Naomi's trying to push it. Bayley's going to be here. Come on, Bayley's here for us. She'll be there when we need.
Now, so what if that Jezebel is the one who turns?
That's what I think she did. I think Bayley set the whole thing up.
I love it.
Right?
I love it.
What's great. Bayley took out Jade.
Yeah.
Because she wanted to be part of the team.
Dude,
so she took out Jade Cargill.
Number one, I've seen all the conspiracy theories on social media. And what's funny about this is they're doing it the WWE video game style.
Yes.
So they're doing it as a storyline. Like somebody's got R-Truth directing Liv, and they're wanting you to think Liv did this. Liv had nothing to do with this. And I would love if Bayley was the one who
it's got to be Bayley.
Shystered all of this.
It's got to be. She comes out to the ring to make the save. She looks like the great friend and the helper. Bianca looks over at Bayley and goes, "Finally, I trust you now. After everything you did to me, I trust you now." And then Bayley
kill Tully Blanchard and kind of just walks away. It's like, no,
this is
hussy.
This would be perfect. And that's why I love it, because in 1 week, they've got all these little things. Maybe it's not Bayley. Maybe they're just leaning in on that to trick us, right? And maybe it's Bianca that's going to turn. Absolutely could be that. Or, like we said, maybe it's a Rhea thing. But, I love this. It's elevated, Rhea, Bianca now, right back towards the top of the division. And all of a sudden, Bayley's right there again. Like, Bayley feels important now again.
As much in one spot as she's had since was the world's women's world champion on SmackDown.
And then on the opposite side, you've got Nia, who, like, she's just doing a really good job becoming towards the top of the division. She just feels so confident. She really just feels like she's a badass there. And while it's rushed, I don't, again, on the heel side, the stories between them aren't quite as good. You have the Tiffany, Nia stuff, and then Candice is kind of getting in the mix between them. But look what this has done for Candice. It's raised her right up. I mean, if we would have said a year ago that Candice and Liv were going to be a part of this team, they wouldn't have really felt like they were in that place. And now all of a sudden, Liv is your world champion. Candice is the speed champion. That helped her. She just got, mainly for Candice, she got put into a story. She just was given something, right? What did Candice ever have other than, here's Candice LeRae out in the ring? Nothing. There was never like a story for her. Until she became like evil Candice and she said the mean stuff. Other than that, she was just smiling, babyface person. Now we're kind of looking at Candice like she's a little weasel, right? She's trying to sneak in and push Tiffany out. She's trying to be like, whatever you need, Nia, I'll help you, Nia. And that's great. Like, that's a great dynamic. It's a character that she didn't have. It's a little something that they found for her. And this will kind of lead me into the next thing, Chad. I'm saying this very, very hesitantly. The way that they're building the women the last couple weeks makes me a little bit more confident about the now US title and the IC title, because man, that's a
Yeah,
lot.
that's what.
That's a lot of titles right now out there for the women. And
Yeah, that's
they
what I
haven't,
was going
right?
to ask you to go into, even though this is not a part of the Survivor Series.
But
We had
it's
the
definitely
bracket
talked about it.
revealed. Yeah, look, we had the bracket revealed for the WWE United States champion, and we love and we saw that Chelsea Green advanced. This, I think, I'm sorry, I'm a homer. Full transparency, this would be a perfect title for her. And then lo and behold, on Monday night, we get a intercontinental
Yeah.
championship. Are you okay with this? What are the plus and minuses with this? This does add extra titles to the mix.
Okay. One, I'm going to start from saying I'm a little worried because I don't think they've overall done a fantastic job with the women's tag titles, but recently they've done better with that. It kind of
Yes.
started with Chelsea. And then with Chelsea, they were given the division more time. They gave Chelsea and Piper some time. They brought up a few of the tag teams from NXT. They gave Bianca and Jade time as the tag team champs to get on TV a little bit more. So that's the key. It's not that there's not enough talent. There's absolutely enough talent. It's, will WWE now take the next step? Will they use these titles in a positive way? Because I think it can be helpful. Right now, for the last 6 months, we've talked about it on the Raw side. It's basically been Liv, Rhea, and then nobody else feels like they're at that level.
Sure.
Right? So now, could you have a mid-card tag? Could you have that mid-card title now that you actually have people like Lyra and Zoe Stark and those women wrestling for? Which I would be fine with. I'm fine with that. I think with the Netflix show coming up, this is a big moment for WWE because, man, in 4 or 5 months, we could literally have half of the Monday Night Raw and SmackDown shows all women.
And could you see maybe like a Trish Stratus coming in for a run or something
Absolutely,
like that
100%. I think
at the Intercontinental title deal?
they have to be doing this with a reason and a plan. Like, I don't think they're just doing this. I'm sure that they've got Charlotte, Becky, Julia, Stephanie Vaquer.
Becky's close to coming back.
Right. So that's what I'm
close. And now, yeah, you know why.
So I think if you have all of them back, then all of a sudden this makes a lot more sense because you have Becky and Charlotte up to the top in the World Championship division. And then you have a lot of women like Candice, like Naomi, like some of those women who aren't quite at the world title level that could absolutely be in the mix here,
absolutely,
wrestling and be getting big moments on TV, be getting 10 to 15-minute matches that they weren't ever given because they didn't have a title. See, you don't need a title to go out there and have a great match. The title's not going to do anything more than, oh, hey, look, these women are wrestling for the title. But it is something that gives them a reason to be on TV more.
Good point.
And so
the belt looks good. Both belts look good.
I will say, consistently for WWE, for AEW, for any company, I will always say I don't want that many titles. For whoever it is, you got to make sure that you treat them well, you handle them, you distinguish them. If they do that, I will change my stance. You and I did not want WWE to go get CM Punk.
No.
When we said, don't do it.
Hey, at least we weren't like the other outfit and said, my senior high source at WWE said there's no way CM Punk is coming back. And then that night he came back.
And
we just
since
said we didn't think he needed him.
Which was
Boy,
actually,
were we wrong.
That was a full year now, right? It was a year ago right now for Survivor Series. That was when he showed up. Sure. He hasn't done, and I'm saying this as I do not know 100%. I am not backstage at WWE. I am not privy to the conversations that CM Punk is having with Triple H or Nick Khan or whomever. But as far as everything that we have heard, seen, he has been not only a model citizen for them, he has been more than they ever could have asked or expected. The guy's down on NXT. He's helping people in the Performance Center. He's showing up
He
on
looks
NXT
happy.
TV.
He looks happy.
He does. He just looks like he's enjoying it. And I can tell you, I'm not CM Punk, but this reminds me just of what I was feeling like when I was working at TVG. You get to the point where you get this job, or you're like in a spot that you thought was the spot that you'd be forever. And then behind the scenes, for whatever reason, some of the people running the show you're not getting along with, and you don't feel good about it. Like, and it's a weird feeling. Like, you feel like, damn, this is what I wanted. I've got it, and it's not great. And then you leave, and when you leave, you're better. You feel better, but you miss the part of it that you loved. And you can see in CM Punk's eyes, like, he always loved being out in the ring, cutting the promos, wrestling, entertaining the fans. He's always loved that. And the place that you can do that the most and the best is WWE.
And
So,
the two major jump the shark. I know you can only supposedly you can only use it once. The two biggest problematic issues in AEW, when Cody Rhodes left AEW, that really, really hurt them.
absolutely.
And then the CM Punk incident, and when CM Punk leaving and then showing up a year ago today at Survivor Series, I think finished them off as a legit right up there with WWE. I don't think a lot of people really thought they were a true competitor.
But they
were a
felt
true
the
number
energy
two,
was good for a while.
but
The
it was
energy
good.
was really
It is
good.
no longer that anymore, especially after with that pay-per-view. And I know we'll get to it in a second, but what I'm saying is Cody Rhodes, CM Punk truly being, it looks like, in the happiest spots of their entire life, is saying something now in WWE at a time where things were really rocky when Vince McMahon at the end and those allegations and stuff were coming out. He was still there, Gino, right? When these guys and girls were coming
Absolutely.
over. It's not like that anymore. It's not like that anymore. It look, they're doing less house dates now. They're happier, and these big PLE events are massive. Hell, we hadn't even talked about Saturday night's main event, who Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes have been doing one of the best storytelling jobs that I could freaking remember. Kevin Owens telling the guy on Friday night, Cody, I hate you.
Dude, and the Cody KO stuff is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, you
on
feel
December
it.
14th, I can't wait to talk about that in a couple of weeks.
You can feel it. You can feel it.
And I'm glad that's not on Survivor Series.
Me too.
It would be lost.
It would. You don't need it, because these two War Games matches are so long, and there's so much now with adding Punk into the mix.
Now, were you surprised we got a LA Knight Shinsuke match added to this?
You know what? I'm not that surprised. It doesn't surprise me. I think it's sort of something they can build a little more with the Friday show before. But it makes sense to me. It's probably going to be
who needs this win.
I think it'll be like a cheap. I could see it not even being a clean win to keep the feud going a little bit longer, to get another match out of this, because I don't think they have Shinsuke just come right in and lose clean.
No.
But I could see him winning or losing by DQ, because he takes out LA Knight after the match, beats him down, and then it leads us to, something bigger, a no DQ style match a few weeks. This could be like between now and the Rumble feud for LA Knight. I could see it,
because you could definitely run it back on Saturday night's main event.
Exactly. And I think this will help him maybe get more back on the babyface side, if that's what they were doing. He was playing a little weird the last month or two, LA Knight, like kind of leaning into the heel stuff again, which is fine. If you want to do that, then go all in with it. But I think this is probably step one for them. And like you said, Saturday night's main event's only a couple weeks away, right? The 14th? 14th. So you want stuff that's already not too far away. And this could be one of those. Braun versus Sheamus versus Kaiser. Dude, this match could be great. Now, let me give a few, I don't love it when they have the match that ends in DQ and then they do that like 2 weeks in a row. I don't think that's the best thing to do.
Didn't Braun take the loss this past weekend?
Yeah, like another DQ one, you know?
Oh,
So,
that's right. That's right. DQ. He hit the table. Gotcha.
so I don't think it's hard because it makes sense in how you're setting up the feud. Like it makes sense for the storyline that one guy has a one-on-one match and that match gets interrupted, and then the next guy has a one-on-one match and that gets interrupted, and it leads to a triple threat. That makes a whole lot of sense. I just don't love having a match that, as we're watching, all of us know it's not going to be a finish, and it goes 15 minutes, and then it gets a DQ. I think you don't want to do that over and over and over to the fans, because then they don't get excited for the matches. They don't think that the matches are going to have as much of a result. They're not into the near falls and the finishes. So I mixed feelings there because it makes sense in how they do it. I just don't want us to get caught into doing this over and over to the fans where it's like, hey, here comes a 15-minute match that we all know is not going to have a finish.
Have you seen Braun's impersonation of Ludwig on social media? I'll have to send it to you. It's pretty fantastic.
Please.
It's pretty good. Yeah. He
Oh,
does it on
you got
WWE social. Yeah, I'll send it to you. It's great.
Oh my God, I need to see this. Oh, I love that.
Hello, my name.
Ladies and gentlemen, this guy is right on the brink too, right? He's not far away from breaking through on his own now. This is the biggest moment that he's had as a single, right? For Kaiser.
100%. Yeah.
And I love Sheamus being in this division because all of us want to see Sheamus win this IC title at some point.
Yeah, we do.
The one that he hasn't won, he's like a good WWE guy. He's the vet that like you want to see him win that ring at the end of the career, right? It kind of feels like that for Sheamus. He's done all the other stuff, but he seems pretty motivated to want to win this IC title and kind of check all the boxes. So I get excited for Sheamus in this division here. And I think they've done a really nice job with Gunther and Priest, because Priest now just feels like a really over babyface. And Gunther, he's having the doubts. He's not used to having lost. He never loses. So now he's just not as confident, but I think it's going to lead to Gunther snapping. And really, I could see it being like either after the match with Priest, or even like, I don't want them to squash Priest, but it wouldn't really upset me if Gunther came in and had a quick win or a dominant win, or after the match, a real beatdown, and Gunther starts screaming again, in German, and screaming and like very aggressively and scary. I think that's where we're going. And it may not immediately be there this week, but I think we're going to get to his breaking point when he completely snaps. And maybe Kaiser has something to do with that. Like that's how Kaiser kind of goes off on his own. Does Gunther, go too far with Kaiser, and we feel sympathy for Kaiser?
I'd love that. I'd love that to be his next feud.
That could be great. And
wouldn't that be something new and intriguing? Those two guys. I mean, that's great Monday night content there.
I know that would be a great, like, what we're saying. I don't think it might be a little too quick for a show like a Saturday Night's Main Event, but that could be like world title for the first night of Netflix.
Sure.
Gunther versus Ludwig Kaiser, right? You don't have it as the main event, but like something to help sell some of those episodes, I think would be really, really good. And Coop, I asked, because my mom and dad, especially as you get older, they're always asking, like, what do you want for Christmas and stuff? And when you're a kid, they know what to get you, a bunch of things. You get older, it's like, there's not as many things I even need or care or want about. But I actually asked mom and dad this year to get me tickets for Netflix Monday Night Raw, January 6th at the Intuit Dome. So we'll see if they come in the stocking for old Santa Claus coming down the chimney for Gino, because I think that's going to be a blast. It's going to be at the new Intuit Dome, which is this incredible Clipper stadium that's like all high tech. And it's going to be the first night of Netflix on January 6th, kind of like start of the new year.
And you
everything's
don't have to
reset.
worry about this thing buffering. You can see it live
I
and
can
in
get there
person.
live.
Like the rest of us is looking to for VPN streams, watching it somewhere.
And we're on the road to the Rumble. Like, so I think
Oh,
hopefully
it'll be
I'll
popping.
be there. Hopefully I'll be there to watch that live. But I could see that being, a Gunther Kaiser if we are going to get there at some point. So only 5 matches on the card. The 2 War Games matches. We've got Gunther Priest, Breaker Sheamus, Kaiser, and LA Knight Nakamura. This is going to be an awesome show.
It is.
It's
And I
just going to
love
be
the way they've done, regardless of the big 5, the 10-person participants. I love the new direction they went with PLEs and keeping these cards small. I love it. The matches are more meaningful.
I had 3 other WWE notes that weren't part of Survivor Series. We talked about one of them. We talked about the women's US and IC titles. Positives, negatives. There could be either. If it's going to elevate more women and give them more of the talented women that weren't world champions on the roster, I think that could be great. We could have a lot of Monday Night Raw episodes where we have the women's IC title being the main event. Or now you have a number 1 contenders match for the women's IC title. If you're making more matches mean more, I'm fine with it. Cody KO. We got into that a little bit, but
man, so good.
Feels real. I want to give WWE a lot of credit right now too for 2 guys that we almost never mention, but it's like when you're watching a sports game, Coop, and you come out of the game, and after the game, nobody said anything about the officiating or the referees. That means they did a good job, right? When you're not talking about them because you didn't notice them being off. I think Nick Aldis and Adam Pearce are just great GMs. Yeah. They're awesome at their job because they're not they're a real person. This is how a real person as a boss would be. There's not bosses that are evil. Like Vince McMahon cringe evil, making you bark like a dog stuff, right? Like
that's my ass.
I don't want that. I also don't want the guy that's so far that's like, you're going one-on-one with the Undertaker, Teddy Long, right? Like,
yeah.
You want someone who's in the middle who they'll lean a little more towards the good guys and good gals, but they're not giving them free opportunities. Everything that they do makes sense. And they're not the same type of person either. Like Nick Aldis is a little more of when the stuff goes on, he's kind of calm and he's handling it. Adam Pearce is a little more crazy and yelling and screaming, but they both I think they're great uses of the GM. And WWE it had been a while where they couldn't figure out how to really get good out of the GM anymore. But these guys are just I wanted to give them credit. They do a good job, man.
Look, and Pearce, doesn't have the decorated professional wrestling background that Aldis did, and has been really, really good. And no one really knew what Aldis was capable of. Look,
we all just kind of assumed he was going to wrestle, right?
Yeah, he was the NWA world champion. He came over from there. He had done a really good job. He could still go. And then would that be accepted if he's not going to be a wrestler? Hey, at the beginning, it was a little rocky. It was, but he has grown into it. And as I said last week, some of the best segments on Friday night have been Nick Aldis related. And it helps when you get a guy or a girl in a situation like that where there's a good storyline, they're very believable, and they have both been spot on. I'm glad you mentioned both of them. So, hey, look, another cheap pop. So have the commentators, both on Monday and Friday.
Joe, Cole, Barrett,
dude, just really,
Corey.
really solid stuff. It's hard to do. Remember, this is live each and every week. Not for this week on SmackDown, it's taped. Don't look at the spoilers. But for the most part, it's live every week. It's hard for what these guys and gals do every week.
Sometimes you're a little safer. Things are a little more boring, and that's the smart play. You just don't need to get into a ton of trying to do too much stuff. I listen to these guys. I listen to their voice. They sound like how a real person would react. I love when Aldis is going back and forth with Cody, with KO. I love when Pierce is talking and setting things up, interacting with some of the women in particular. It just, they don't feel cringy. They don't say things people wouldn't say. They found a couple really good GMs right now. They really have with these two guys. And then, honestly, I think one of my favorite WWE segments, I'm not even joking, in the last couple of years, Kofi and Xavier
Oh, dude.
on Monday Night Raw,
This was
going
incredible.
at each other, saying everything that all of us as fans have thought, but like, we don't even really think that. We kind of like, that's just like the mean thing you would say to someone. And Chad, everybody's had a fight like this with one of your friends. We've all done it too. That's what's great. Like, we've all had the moment where you're yelling at one of your friends, this and that, and then you say some stuff where you're like, damn, I shouldn't have said that. Or maybe you've been waiting to say it, but holy crap. Kofi said, this is why we never let you call the plays, because you're too reckless. Me and Big E never let you. And then Xavier came back and said, the only reason why you even were a champ was because of me. I pushed Kofi Mania for you. And then you just curled up in a ball after you lost to Brock Lesnar in 6 seconds. He just came at him. And then Kofi comes back and says, you've never even been a singles champ. You had the crown and you squandered it. I gave you my IC title shot and you lost that. Man, whoa. This was, and this is years of them. And if we hadn't had the weeks of the teases over the last couple months, it wouldn't feel like as big of a deal. But man, this felt like a massive, massive deal. And they teased next week, because I believe there's an anniversary of the New Day.
Big E will be there.
So, again, just like we were saying with the Bloodline story.
Slow burn, baby. Slow burn.
Coming out of Monday, we could have a heel Kofi, a heel Xavier. We could have Big E returning if he's healthy. I don't know. I don't want to get ahead of myself and get excited. But, like, there's a 0.1% chance that Big E's healthy and he's back in the mix and we've got a storyline here. But whatever happens, the person who goes after Big E either takes Big E out or says something to Big E, that's the heel, right? That's who the heel is. The guy who goes after Big E. Man, this is going to be like, I was so excited for that, for these two guys who have been such a mainstay in the last decade and just laying it out there. I sent you a text right away. Like, oh my God. It was great.
It's phenomenal. And to see the video from the crowd, not just the video itself, and to hear the crowd be involved in it was better than actually watching the video just by itself on television or WWE socials. Seeing the crowd record it and hearing the crowd's reaction was just phenomenal, man. Phenomenal.
So good. So that's on the WWE side as we lead into Survivor Series. That's on Saturday. And then we'll lead into Saturday night's main event coming off of that. Coop, before we get out of here, I just wanted to quickly talk a little bit about AEW because they came off of their Full Gear pay-per-view. And, like, again, if we're judging things in a complete vacuum and we go through a lot of the in-ring stuff, like, a lot of the in-ring work is good. It's above average. It's not going to be like botches. It's solid in-ring quality. It just, every time we come off of one of these pay-per-views more and more, it just becomes the build leading into it wasn't as good. And so people cared less.
You and I both said this was probably more of a lot of these could be main event on Dynamite type matches.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And they have, 3 matches on the pre-show. And they have Private Party pick up a win for the tag team championship. That's fine. They're the newly crowned team, the team that beat the Young Bucks. It just didn't feel like a big moment at all. It didn't feel like this team hasn't had the opportunity in the last couple of years to be on pay-per-view all that much. Just didn't feel like much at all. I mean, MJF, Roderick Strong, solid in-ring work. This is the best use you have of MJF right now?
Man, let's talk about this real quick. Man, he signed this big contract extension with the AEW, and it's like giving Dak Prescott or another big. That's why I've never been a big fan, Gino, of loading up on a quarterback. And it just seems like they're never the same again. This guy just doesn't mean anything right now.
I know.
He doesn't. This was a non-impactful match. He's doing his heel stuff on Twitter and or X and on social media that just, the Rosie O'Donnell stuff. It's just old and rehashed. And this match right here, other than just being a good wrestling match, there wasn't much invested for me. Something needs to change with the MJF. We talked about it last week. This guy was the guy that WWE wanted.
He was hot. That was our favorite part of the show. That was
I don't want this version of MJF on my roster at all.
It just, they've cooled him down so much. Okay, I'll give a big positive. Mercedes Moné, Chris Statlander. They go almost 20 minutes in ring. Sure. Fantastic. Like, great. Mercedes is really good. Chris Statlander is excellent. The problem is the timing of this match, because they just turned Chris Statlander into a babyface. She is one of the few real like players in the women's division that you actually think might be able to beat a Mercedes Moné, but she just turned babyface. You didn't give her any momentum at all, and then she loses. So where do you go from here? I mean, yes, great 19-minute match, awesome, but was that the best way to use these two women over like a 6-week period? If that's the story you want to tell, I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know who's next either. Right? Willow. Who came back? Willow.
Willow is back.
Willow, yeah, Willow is back. So it'll be Willow Moné. But I'm with you, Statlander. You put them in these moments to bring somebody back, and when you lose, they're not going to be on Dynamite next week.
They do too much
on Friday or Saturday.
They do too much of this, and I pointed out, like, you book this shit. Like, this isn't like the playoffs in the NBA.
About it.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, where, oh no, in the second round, the Lakers and the Clippers are going to play. Like, you can't, it's just inevitable. They're going to play in the second round. No, you can maneuver things around. They don't have to wrestle on this time. Like, you can wait another month or another 2 months before you put Statlander in that position to where she's built up some more momentum. I just don't understand why, because it feels like, they got Mercedes, they've got Mariah May, Toni Storm.
Wasn't on the card.
Yeah, Mariah's not on here at all. They've got Toni, who's been off for a little bit, I think, kind of selling some of the storyline.
And I think she's working the I'm leaving, I'm quitting. That's not happening.
That kind of thing. So I think those three, like Mercedes, Mariah, Toni, I think you have Willow, Statlander, and Jamie Hayter. Like, that's their division. Like, those are the women that feel like they're...
Yeah, because you've turned Deonna Purrazzo into a jobber. She
into nothing. Britt Baker's nothing anymore. Nothing, irrelevant. It's sad. Shout out to Britt, though. I saw her on Cobra Kai the other day. She popped up. Yeah. She's one of the Russians on the final episodes of Cobra Kai. She's all in the sweatsuit and the tracksuit, and I'm like, oh, it's Britt Baker. They're fighting
long the days are gone of Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa. It's just gone.
Right.
It's just not there anymore.
Thunder, Cole, and Britt and Cole are gone, and that was sort of like a fun package with the two of them together.
Yeah, it's gone.
Cheetah isn't really much. So you've got this group of, like, I think 5 or 6 women that feel like they're like the world title contenders. You can't have Statlander losing clean like this, or I think you want to wait for characters like Statlander to build them up a little bit more. It almost felt like the main event in that nobody thought Orange Cassidy was winning. And Orange Cassidy is a guy who, even though he's not your typical world title contender, they could have done a really fun job with like a month of, could Orange Cassidy win the world title? Like leading it in, making you think a few times Orange Cassidy could. He's this guy that's got all this groundswell. His character was a joke. People didn't even think he should belong on TV. And now he's getting another world title shot. Could you imagine? They didn't do any of that.
No.
None of that. You know how, and hey, you know how easy it is to do? I just did it in 20 seconds. All you got to do is say it. Like, it's really simple. It's not like rocket science. It's just have your announcers make me believe there's a chance that this guy could win. We didn't get any of that. None of that.
And the ending of the match was just so convoluted, I couldn't keep up.
You
It
got
was just rough.
So after the match, was it Christian Cage, Hangman Adam Page, all these heels involved? I don't know what the hell's going on with that. I will say a couple things that I think are positives coming off of the show. One, Jay White picked up the win. I thought that was good. Jay White has not really been handled well, and they've gone consistent with him. So now he's got a couple wins over Moxley. Jay White, or a couple wins over Hangman. Jay White should be the next guy to face Moxley. He shouldn't beat him, but Jay White should step up and be in the main event. Jay White versus Moxley, that's a good main event for like a pay-per-view or a Dynamite show. I think that's solid. And I feel like Jay White isn't in the Continental Classic. They announced the participants, which again, why did they just announce them? Why don't they have a bigger show? Maybe there could be qualifying matches to get into the Continental Classic. And who did you pick that's in it? Why randomly did you pick them? Any of that would be cool. Like, have a 30-minute show leading into Dynamite. You're on HBO Max now. That could be like a streaming thing just on Max that could get people to go and try to download the app. Hey, look, this is the road to the Continental Classic. Why didn't they have something like that to get me more excited about it? I think no Jay White in that match or in the tournament means Jay White and Moxley are going to be involved soon. So that was the right call. And I would not have put Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher in a match, in a feud. But if I did, I would have gone with Kyle Fletcher. So that's smart. That makes sense for their storyline. They're trying to build Kyle Fletcher. The problem with that, in doing that, they just had their Roman Reigns take another pin.
The greatest wrestler in the world.
Yeah. He's lost again in the last 3 months. He's taken clean pins and L's over and over. Will Ospreay does not feel as big of a deal as he was just 2 months ago. Not at all. Now, you're going to have Ospreay in the Continental Classic. He's going to be wrestling a bunch of great matches, so maybe that will help. But Chad, the tournaments don't really help ratings and build very much because they're just random matches.
Yeah.
We see this with WWE a lot too. When WWE was having tournaments, they didn't even help their ratings quite as much because people want the story to build to the match. When you just get random matches and not even in a winner, like in a winner's tournament or a single elimination tournament, when you're talking about a round robin tournament like this, the matches are way less important because losing doesn't really matter. You still get another match after. It's not like you lose and you're done. So these tournaments are even harder to play on TV because it's just like, oh, great match. Let's sit back and watch for 15 minutes. People don't get as invested in that. But you know what? They went with, I don't think the build to almost all of these matches were correct. But I will say, Jay White, right decision. Kyle Fletcher, right decision for Fletcher, not for Ospreay or for your whole company. For Fletcher, yes. Daniel Garcia, right decision. Hey, remember when Jack Perry was supposed to be something? Remember when they were telling us?
Hell, again, a year ago around this time, he was using real glass backstage.
Remember when they were telling us that Jack Perry was going to be one of the biggest stars in wrestling because they were going to use the CM Punk angle. They were going to use the footage and turn Jack Perry into this star. Where are the Young Bucks even right now? Like all of the elite stuff. Okada is no longer around with them. They're not even around. Nobody's mentioning them. It's like, how many of these big company storylines where they were doing the devil thing with MJF and Cole, and that just completely crapped the bed? I'll give them a slight pass because Cole got hurt. So maybe they had a couple things planned that they couldn't execute because Adam Cole was hurt. Okay, sure. But then they had the big Elite versus Tony Khan. Tony Khan gets slammed in the ring. Nothing. No follow-up, nothing. It's like these are supposed to be big, huge, company-wide storylines, and they're not set up. It'd be like if you and I walked into Netflix to try to pitch a show, but we didn't have any episodes written. We had no story. We didn't know where the
show
characters.
About nothing.
It's say that a show about nothing. But what are the stories? Nothing. No. Well, no, we went to the Butler. Nope, that didn't happen. No story, no nothing, Jerry. I'm telling you. Just like that, right? That's our pitch. But you can tell that they don't have a storyboard of the next 3 things that were going to happen. And you can tell that WWE does with the Bloodline story. With
I thought another positive. I thought Bobby Lashley.
Absolutely.
Winning. Poor Swerve. He's done for, but Lashley looks. I mean, I would do the Brock Lesnar run with him in AEW.
So I think coming out of this show, the positives that I had, Jay White, he's got some momentum built up. Kyle Fletcher, he feels like this punk little ass that you want to punch, but he's really good, and they're making him a bigger star. It might be a little at the expense of Will Ospreay, though. We'll see. Daniel Garcia over Jack Perry. Daniel Garcia is a solid mid-card champion. I think that's a very good spot for him. A really good role for him. A guy that can come on TV, have good matches. People like him. They get behind him. They feel like he's one of the real AEW guys. So that's fine. Positive. I think mid-card champ, Daniel Garcia, really good coming out of that. But
yes,
you have Takeshita get a win. Think that's really nice. Takeshita's another one of these young guys that you want to build the momentum with, but he beats Ricochet. And now Ricochet's losing. Ricochet's going to be in this Continental Classic, so we'll get to see him have some awesome matches, but does Ricochet feel like he's a world title contender right now?
No, I think he's lost more than he's won.
Yeah. And it's a bit of a bummer because it's like the 50-50 stuff for a lot of these guys and gals where they want to give everybody even time and even results when that's not how you're supposed to run a company or run a TV show. You got to pick the 5 or 6, go with them for a while, and maybe now it'll be guys like White, Fletcher, Garcia, Lashley, Takeshita that'll get the focus over the next couple months moving forward. That's fine, but you got to be careful because you just had people, MJF, Will Ospreay, Swerve. Those guys were naturally over on their own. And you kind of like, in order to help get some other people over more, you cut the legs out from those guys. Again, I'm going to go back to myself at TVG. I was Zack Ryder. I got myself over. I was Matt Cardona. They didn't put me up on the main shifts. I was working the late double and the Mondays and Tuesdays, and I busted through the ceiling. But one gentleman there didn't like it because it wasn't his plan. So I would get scheduled to work big shows or big events, and then my schedule would get changed. And it was told because this guy didn't think I should be in those spots.
And their next pay-per-view is what, December 28th, World's End, and then they have one a week later. It's like Worlds Collide or Wrestle Dynasty with New Japan or whatever it is. So you have about a month now to go forward until their next pay-per-view, which I think it's in Orlando. So it is in the States. World's End. I think it's New Year's Eve weekend. Yeah, December 28th. So that's what we have to work to.
I feel like next year at one of the big shows, like it's got to be Darby beating Moxley for the title eventually, right? He's got to be the guy that eventually beats Moxley because of the way it all went down. Yeah. I just don't think we're there yet, right? Moxley's going to hold this title for a little while longer, for a couple more months at least. And
yeah, your next big one would be in July at All In when they go to Texas Global Life. That's a stadium. You would think that they would have to have something big there, and that would be the big blow off with Darby and Mox. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, that makes the most sense. That does. That feels like it. So we'll see if that's where we're going and where we're heading, and maybe Darby will be the guy to take it off Mox and be the guy who stands up for AEW. Coop, before I let you go, man, I got to pick your brain because you have been firing right now with your NFL, with your college plays. You had a really good last weekend. You were on a roll. You parlayed that on over to Lamar on Monday Night Football. What are you throwing at us this week, my friend? Toss us a couple plays.
Man, it's I've been watching some lines. I'm a line watcher too. If I really feel like I've learned a lot getting older, not to just automatically jump on something. And I've also learned to like kind of shop lines, look and see what this book is offering, look and see what this book is offering. But you know, being here in Texas, I'm definitely interested in the Texas A&M game this Saturday night. Number one, it's the first time they've played in it seems like forever, right? And now I was all over Auburn this past weekend. The loss really didn't hurt A&M because the way the SEC West shakes out is Texas and Texas A&M are going to play for their spot in the SEC championship, and the winner plays Georgia. The way it's going, you just really don't know who could beat Georgia, who couldn't beat Georgia. Just this is not Georgia of the years past, but anyway, this game is really, really interesting because there's so much at stake politically, financially. They gave us an early line last week before the A&M kickoff and after. They do the big game lines to try to draw you in early. And so before the A&M game, we had a Texas line of -7.5, even though this game is at Texas A&M. And then after the game, they took the line down. A&M loses. The line opens again at 7. And now if you look at it today, as here of Tuesday afternoon, that line is now at 5.5. There are some injury aspects on the Texas side of things. I see how both sides, you could be on both sides. I'm going to be honest with you here. I'm going to wait a couple of days. I want to see this number another day or two or fluctuate, but I'll give you all my plays on my social media stuff on Thursday. I like line play. I like to see how lines move, man. I've gotten older and wiser, Gino.
No, you gotta
I just don't bet everything to bet everything
to get all the action, because nowadays there's so many things we can play. There's so much. You don't necessarily have to just get the action on everything. You can be a little more disciplined, and I love that. So we'll be following you at Chad Cooper on Twitter and on Instagram. Coop, man, as we get towards Thanksgiving, I sent you some pictures the other day. It was, I think 12 years ago when I was Delta Downs for the first time, and you and I met. So yeah, I mean 2012, 2013. So it's been over a decade. Man, Thanksgiving coming up. I'm very thankful to have a good friend like you. You've given me so many hours through the years, talking wrestling, talking sports, talking racing, talking life, just shooting messages back and forth, man. Always love going back and forth with you. Always appreciate your insight. And man, I'm very, very thankful and grateful to have a person like you in my life, buddy.
Bro, the exact same. Now, I do have to ask you one question, Thanksgiving question.
Please.
Dressing or stuffing?
Stuffing.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. For you?
See, I'm a dressing. Dressing. I'm more. Yeah, it's more of a southern thing.
Yes, that is. That's true.
Dressing area.
Beautiful.
So I'm just curious.
I want to see a photo of some of your spread too on Thursday.
Yeah, I'll be in the gobbledygooker outfit too.
Beautiful. Woo! You and me and Gene running the crisscrosses. Well, woo! I'm gonna throw on some of the old Survivor Series in the background for the next couple days.
That'd be awesome.
While I get ready for Thanksgiving stuff and I get in the mode. So thank you so much, buddy. Good luck to you with all your plays this week. Hope everyone has a fantastic Thanksgiving. Chad and I will be back next week talking all about what happened at Survivor Series War Games.